Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. Let me put this into perspective for you. This is my diatribe on all things medical. We haven't had a free medical market in this country since the early 1900s, when the Carnegies and the Rockefellers joined together, in one of the few times that they did, and convinced Congress, glad-handed Congress, quite frankly, to make the American Medical Association the exclusive arbiter of all things medical in the United States. It was a hostile takeover of the practice of medicine, which made all other types of medicine, kicked all other types of medicine off of the bus. So the chiropractors, the naturopaths, the homeopaths, especially the homeopaths, the herbalists, were all kicked off of the bus of medicine, and the MDs ensconced into first place. And they have remained there ever since, not because their therapeutics are better, not because their therapeutics are more affordable, not because their therapeutics are safer, but because of the unbelievable power and persuasion of the pharmaceutical industry, which has more money than God. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician. In order to become a licensed naturopathic physician in the U.S., you have to do 4 years pre-med. I matriculated at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, then 4 years of naturopathic medical school at a fully accredited by the United States Department of Education medical school. I matriculated at Bastyr College of Naturopathic Medicine outside of Seattle, which is now the Bastyr University. Then you have to pass national boards, then you have to pass the state boards, then you have to graduate. Then you have to secure a license to practice naturopathic medicine, and then you have to secure 25 hours of continuing education credit every year. It's a full-blown primary care system of medicine. Full-blown primary care system of medicine. However, naturopathic medicine is currently only licensed and regulated in 24 states, plus the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Now, what does this mean? Oh, yeah, and by the way, it's a felony to practice naturopathic medicine in Tennessee and Florida. What does this mean? Does this mean that the laws of science change when you cross a state line? No. It's all about turf. It has nothing to do with public health. It has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with anything other than a monopolization of the medical market, which has been in place before anybody that's alive now was born. It happened in the early 1900s. So the monopoly is so vast and so overarching and so complete that most people are completely unaware that it exists. And people look around and they see, well, the only medicine practiced in my hospital is MD medicine. The only medicine my insurance pays for, by and large, is MD medicine. The only medicine they make TV shows and movies about is MD medicine. And the only medicine they do research on at my alma mater is MD-directed medicine. Therefore, the MDs must be better at what they do than everybody else. That's a logical conclusion. Unless, of course, you add into the equation the data point of the monopolistic takeover of the medical market, the hostile takeover of the medical market in the early 1900s. This is a problem. And this is a problem that's much bigger than the COVID shenanigans, much bigger than all of the vaccination problems, much bigger than all of that. Here's why. Your medical doctor may be the nicest person God ever created, but your medical doctor doesn't practice medicine. Nobody practices medicine. Medicine is a big umbrella underneath which many disciplines hang. So we have allopathic medicine, the MD's practice. We have chiropractic medicine, homeopathic medicine, naturopathic medicine, acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, and the oldest medicine on planet Earth, Ayurveda, plus many other types of medicine. And all of these different medical disciplines have different approaches, different techniques, different therapeutics, the intention of which are to help people recover their health, except the MD method. Again, your medical doctor doesn't practice medicine. They practice allopathic medicine, and allopathic medicine is based on Newtonian physics, which is reductionistic, which argues If it can't be measured, it does not exist. So, since the soul or the spirit or God or anything metaphysical can't be measured, it therefore does not exist. So the MD is trained to believe that the human body is a bag of biochemicals waiting to break, that life itself was an evolutionary fiat started by a thundercloud passing over a swamp and discharging a lightning bolt into the swamp, and then life began, and it's nonsense. And then evolution took over. The point here is that the MD is trained in a reductionistic system of medicine that does not believe in anything metaphysical. So to the MD, and this is writ large in psychiatry, consciousness itself is a function of biochemistry. And when the human body dies, it's lights out, game over. There's no such thing as the spirit. There's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as life after death, etc., etc., etc. Consciousness itself is a function of biochemistry. Thus spake the MD. And when a medical doctor is dealing with a patient who is suffering with a disease, it's the medical doctor's job not to cure the disease, but to manage the disease. So the asthma is never cured, it's managed. The heartburn is never cured, it's managed. The blood pressure is never cured, it's managed. The high blood pressure is never cured, it's managed. Did I just say that? The depression is never cured, it's managed. The arthritis is never cured, it's managed. Nothing is cured except every once in a while a bacterial infection with antibiotics, which are starting to fail us now. The wheelhouse of MD-directed allopathic medicine is trauma care and surgery, military field medicine, dentistry. Those areas are the epitome of reductionism. It doesn't get any more reductionistic than, oh, you have a bullet in your arm, oh, you have a broken bone, oh, you have a bleeding artery. That's the wheelhouse of allopathic medicine, and by the way, that's where all of the advances in medicine have been made in the last 100 years. Better surgical techniques, better surgical drugs, better surgical instruments, better diagnostic techniques. The stuff that they can do with surgery now is remarkable. But for most of the conditions that most people go to the doctor for, most of the time, it is in fact a failed methodology, because the allopathically trained MD does not know what causes your ailment and does not know how to cure it. So all they can do is manage it. And they do that with drugs and surgery. Under the influence of the drug and the surgery, you get weaker and more dependent on the drug over time. Then the drug stops working. So you need a second or a third or a fourth drug, and then you need a drug or two to deal with the side effects of the first, second, and third drugs. Meanwhile, the operative cause of the problem is never addressed, never fixed, so you get weaker and weaker over time, and then you die. But before you die, you go bankrupt. The leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States is MD-directed medicine, medical treatments. And then you die. Our life expectancy is getting shorter while the MDs have been in charge, and chronic disease is escalating. You know, Robert Kennedy is talking about this. He's not talking about it the way that I'm talking about it, but he recognizes, as does anybody with an open mind, that medicine has failed us and that chronic disease is escalating. Alzheimer's is out of control. Autism is out of control. Just as many people get heart disease now as they did before we started spending $20 billion a year on statin drugs. For goodness sakes. I mean, just look around. How many people do you know that are healthy? The reason that we have a failure in healthcare in the United States of America, in Canada, and in the European Union is not because of we have bad genes, and not because of chemtrails, which are very real things, by the way. But it's because the medical doctors, the MDs practicing allopathic medicine, are the wrong dog for this hunt. They're the wrong dog for this hunt. Their therapeutics are based on a childish, juvenile, outdated, old-fashioned understanding of human anatomy and physiology and how the body works. It's that simple. I mean, if you are a You know, if you're a duck hunter and you go duck hunting with a fishing rod and a chihuahua, you're coming back empty-handed. It was the wrong tool and the wrong dog. MD-directed allopathic medicine is the wrong dog for the hunt for chronic disease, which brings us to the conclusion, or the revelation, which is mind-blowing for most people. You need to really take this in because it's true. Your medical doctor may be the nicest person God ever created, but your medical doctor does not practice health care. They practice sick care or disease management. Nothing gets cured. By the way, cure has become a 4-letter word in the practice of medicine, and that is telling. You're not supposed to utter the word cure because nothing gets cured. Well, I tell you what, nothing gets cured in the MD's office, but things get cured all of the time. In the naturopath's office, in the homeopath's office, in the Ayurvedic practitioner's office. Holistic medical schools of thought practice curative medicine. And yet, we are not brought to the table. We have been kicked off of the bus of medicine and have been the underdog for over 100 years, kept in the underdog position by the power and the political persuasion and the largesse of the pharmaceutical industry. And it might surprise you to know that as a naturopathic doctor, I can prescribe drugs. You know, thank God for lidocaine. Every time I'm in the dentist chair, thank God for lidocaine, thank God for insulin, thank God for the sterile technique. It's not the drug, it's how it's used. It's not the gun, it's how it's used. These things should have been taught to you. These distinctions should have been taught to you in high school. But the educational system has been co-opted by the cabal, the pharmaceutical industry, and it's bad. And as bad as you are starting to think it is, because you're finally starting to see through the chinks in the armor of the conventional medical people because of all the COVID nonsense, I'm telling you, it's 1,000 times worse because nothing gets cured. And let me tell you how deep the socialization has gone here. So here's what happens. You know, starting in your 30s, let's say, mid-20s, early 30s, once you enter the workforce, in the United States, you're paying medical insurance premiums every month. In Canada or the European Union, because it's socialized medicine, they take it right out of your paycheck, no say-so. So we've been convinced here in the U.S. that we have to buy medical insurance, so we do. And over the course of our lifetime, it's a small fortune. And while we are purchasing medical insurance every month, which gives us access to only one type of medicine, MD-directed, pharmaceutical-centrist, allopathic, reductionistic medicine, non-curative, disease management medicine, we get sick. While we are under the MD's care, we get sick. And then we go to the MD, and they have no idea what caused our problem, and they have no idea how to cure the problem. They give us a drug, which, by the way, we have to pay extra for most of the time, more out-of-the-pocket money for the drug. We pay way more in the United States than anybody else in the world does for pharmaceuticals, exactly the same drug. We pay way more. We're all okay with that. But the finances aside, while we were under the care of the medical doctor, we got sick, and we give them a pass. We don't criticize them. We don't even think twice about it. And then the treatments that they give us are managerial. And we don't think twice about that. We don't criticize them for that. And then, if it's a loved one of ours that gets cancer or a life-threatening illness or something, and they die while under the care of the medical doctor, we give them a pass. And we're so grief-stricken that we organize a 5K run and raise $10,000, and we give it to the medical profession, under whose tutelage and care our loved one got sick in the first place and then died. And nonsense like this can only happen inside of a monopoly, because people are simply unaware of all of these things that I have just spoken about. They're unaware that the medical doctor doesn't practice medicine, that the medical doctor practices allopathic medicine, which is non-curative. And they're unaware that other types of medicine exist. Other types of medicine, which are in fact curative, exist. Because in the back of your mind, you have been told for over 100 years that everybody who's not an MD is a back-of-the-bus quack with substandard, dangerous training. Well, the reverse is true. I have a couple of friends who are MDs and surgeons. One's retired, or they're both retired surgeons. And, thank God for surgery. Again, every time I'm in the dentist chair, thank God for Novocaine. This is not a diatribe against all things allopathic. This is a diatribe against a monopolized medical market, which is killing us, literally. Honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, the best thing that you can do moving forward in order to secure your health is to fire your medical doctor, leave that matrix, and educate yourself about alternatives which exist and which are licensed and regulated, by the way. I've put together a remarkable amount of information at my website, leavebigpharmabehind.com. Do you like the sound of that? I do. Tons of information here that you can acquaint yourself with and learn the simple steps to remove yourself from the monopolistic, Machiavellian, mediocre, quite frankly, medical mousetrap that you have been caught inside of. This message apparently only for those who have ears to hear. There are alternatives to the MD method which are more effective than the MD method for bringing people into a state of health. And by the way, if you'd like to see your medical doctor's head explode, ask them to define health. They won't do it because they can't do it. Health is not the absence of disease. That's like saying, well, winter is the absence of summer. Well, it's a lot more than that. I'll tell you what my definition of health is. I'll tell you what the accurate definition of health is, and then I'll leave it at that. Health is the ability of a living organism to experience stress, distress, and remain in a symptom-free state and equilibrium and balance. That's the definition of health. And if that has piqued your curiosity, then thank God the door has opened a little bit. So much more to understand by way of empowering yourself to make yourself healthy. Surgery is complicated, ladies and gentlemen. Healing is easy. It's much easier than you think. Let me show you how. LeaveBigPharmaBehind.com. 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 I am now and always will be, God willing, and the creek don't rise, your steadfast advocate for all things naturopathic, all things holistic, all things curative, Dr. Peter Glidden. See you around campus.